Join me as I design and plant up a small succulent garden bed. At the side of my house here, I have this area that's kind of between a retaining wall. There's a kind of a hillside up there. There's this little ledge that doesn't have a lot of room, but it's perfect for putting together a really cute succulent garden bed. I have another area of the yard that I've done a very similar project. Further down the wall here, you'll see this little succulent bed is even smaller, and I've really tried to fill it in with lots of different types of succulents, lots of different color. You can see it gets some nice mid-morning sun. It's a really nice way to kind of brighten up what is more or less a very unattractive retaining wall, but to give it a little bit of color. And it's also very drought tolerant, which is great for here in California. Now this one, you'll see it's getting some direct sunlight, so certain times of the year it does get quite hot. This other area, I'll show you a little bit more where it is. It's a little more tucked away, doesn't get as much sunshine, a little bit of a bigger space. But luckily some succulents are actually a little bit happier with more indirect light. So I'm gonna work with that, and you'll notice a little bit, we have planted this before. There is some gopher wire. We do have quite a lot of gophers that hang out on these hills. So I just wanna check that my gopher wire looks okay and pull out any weeds. We had some grass seed that was growing here, so that is probably gonna become problematic. I'm gonna pull out any grass that I see. You can see where the grass used to be. But it should be a pretty fun and easy project to throw a bunch of succulents in here. If you've watched my channel, you know I do have quite a collection of succulents. These are all older propagations that I have worked with. Over here, this is my newly organized propagation station. So I have things like this where I throw down a lot of succulent leaves and start to grow more succulents. So this is where they end up going to live. So part of the reason I propagate them is so that I can plant them up in my garden. So the first thing I'm gonna do here to prepare this bed is I'm going to go through and take out all, like I said, there used to be grass growing here. Take out all these old bits of grass and just check the soil, and we'll probably replace this soil with some nice cactus mix. We also have a loquat tree up there that pops down a lot of seeds, so I'm just gonna really clean out this bed as the first step. So I've cleared out most of this space, tried to pull out any root balls. I have to be really careful because, as I mentioned, there is a gopher barrier in there. It's like chicken wire and it can be really sharp. I'm now going to add some new soil there. There's still a good bit of soil there, but I'm gonna add some new fresh cactus mix soil, which is what succulents prefer. It's really nice and well draining. It's real gritty. Succulents are funny because they're very drought tolerant. They don't want a lot of water, but they do need some water. That's where a lot of people go wrong, is they either overwater or underwater. So finding the balance can be a little bit tricky. So I'm just gonna add some of this cactus mix, which really helps keep the balance of moisture that succulents prefer. So this is a nice organic cactus and succulent mix. When you're choosing a soil, it's always best to go organic. That means the soil is made up of organic materials that help break down and feed the plants. Non-organic soils are often petroleum-based, and that's just really not great for your plants or the environment. So always choose an organic mix if you can. And I'm just gonna fill this in as a top layer. And if you take a look at this soil, it's really nice, gritty. It's full of pumice and lava rock, which help water flow around the roots, but not become really clay-like and sticky. That's one thing cactus and succulents really hate. They want the water to flow past the roots. The roots will retain the moisture, and the soil will let the water flow past. So now that my soil is in there, I don't know if you can tell, I kind of arched the soil up a bit. It's not completely flat. And I am doing that as a visual thing, is I'm going to arch up some of the succulents and plant them up above and let it flow down. And that will just be a nice added visual element as the succulents will be planted into the soil. They won't all be flat back. The ones at the back will be raised a little bit. They'll be a little bit easier to see. They'll get a little bit more light. It'll just be a nicer aesthetic overall. That's one thing to keep in mind when you are designing a bed, is what's it going to look like when it's in? Are you going to be able to see the stuff at the back? And that's also to do with choosing which plants. The plants at the back, it's a better idea to choose the plants that will be taller. So I have a mix of different succulents I'm going to choose from. Some will be taller, those I'm going to put at the back. Some are more ground cover, those are going to be at the front here. One of the cool things about working with succulents is there's lots of different ways to plant them. You don't have to plant them with full roots. You can plant them from just cuttings. So some of the succulents I'm choosing to put in here have come from old arrangements that have gotten old and leggy. You'll notice, like, for example, this little jelly bean sedum. I don't want to plant this with the roots. I just want the very bottom rosette. So for this particular succulent, I just want the end. I'm just gonna cut it off there like that, and generally let this callus over. I'm not gonna water this. We're not expecting any rain anytime soon. So I can just simply pop that straight into the soil and it will root. But I don't have to do it that way. For example, these are the same kind of sedums. These ones are rooted and they're a little bit shorter. So if you go through, I just pulled this out with the roots. I can plant that one as well. If you do it with the roots, you don't have to worry about it callousing over. So succulents give you a lot of different options on how to plant them. So now that I'm in planting mode, I'm gonna go through and I'm gonna really think about the different succulents that I have, the shape, the color, the height that they're gonna get, and I'm gonna just start designing this up. And the beauty of it as well, especially when you've got cuttings, is I can pull them out and change them and rearrange them as I go. So I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start with, rather than starting with the small plants, I'm gonna start with the larger plants. And now these aren't too large, actually. These are some cute little aloes. I'm gonna just call them the main plants of the arrangement. I'm gonna start with them, put them in place, and then put the smaller plants around them. These aloes are another example of plants that I'm gonna plant that are rooted. Let's just go for it. For this as well, I wanna make this like a sort of organic looking arrangement. So I'm not gonna be too meticulous about like the same plants. I want it to flow a little bit more organically. Tend to stay low profile, whereas these sedums can grow a lot taller. So we're going to keep the sedums at the back and the echeveria at the front. In a way, doing this arrangement is really great for me because I've had a lot of these old sedums and graptivarias that I've had in my propagation station waiting for a project. It's like a deep cleanse of plants. Another cool thing about succulents, these are little aeoniums, and these are a lovely red color. They get nice and red when exposed to more sunlight. And you can see this started as a cutting, and it grew a plant, and I chopped the top off to put in another arrangement, and after cutting the top off, it grew 3 new little baby plants. And that's another wonderful thing about succulents, is they do that. So aeoniums do tend to get a little bit tall, so I'm also gonna put that one toward the back. I think it'll just add some nice color, probably get bigger. So this was part of a fairy garden project that actually we did make a video of, and all arrangements start to get a little bit old and gross after a while, so there's no harm taking it apart and starting over. This is a little bit of a golem jade. It's not too happy. I think it's a little constrained in this terracotta pot, and I think it'll be a lot happier here on this wall. They can tend to get a little bit big, so I'm gonna put that at the back here, and I think that'll almost looks like a little bonsai tree. I'll squeeze that in nicely there. There was another little copper tone sedum. It wasn't really fitting in there, it was kind of falling out, so that's the beauty of these cuttings. You can just pop them out and pop them back in. And this is an Aeonium kiwi, same as that. I'm gonna stick those together. I have these are little crassulas, little jade plants. I love the way these ones are nice and delicate and small. I actually started these as cuttings in an apartment I used to live at about 5 years ago. These were in the front yard. I snipped a few cute pieces and they live on. I also have these kalanchoe, which do tend to get really tall. So I'm gonna put them right in the corner here, and I think they're going to fill in this quite nicely. I think eventually I will have to cut them back, but for now, this is just fine. Here is what we have so far. What I'm really proud of is I have now emptied out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 propagations that I've had in my propagation station, which my New Year's resolution is to keep this under control. My husband rightly says there's too many plants, and I think it's all good as long as they're for realistic projects. So here they are. Here is what all of those propagations are being collected for. I still have some more plants I do want to put in here, but for now, this is looking pretty good. Here's another echeveria. I got this at Costco, and as you can see, it kind of went rogue on me. But it has all these little pups growing out of the sides, so those are perfect to add here. I'm gonna grab 3, and the beauty is that more will just keep growing out of this. So this is one of my propagation trays, and what's going on here is usually when I have plants in my yard, or sometimes I'll spot plants, you know, like at the grocery store or the hardware store, and they've dropped succulent leaves. I just lay them down here, and you'll see they start to grow little pups, and you kind of just leave them alone here, and then they start to take off. So some of these are fully grown, and I'm happy to take them out and add them to the new little area. So this, it's kind of in the dark back here. This is a Graptivaria California Sunset, I believe. It looks really green right now because it's in the dark back there, but once I place it in that little nook, it'll turn a nice kind of bright pinky orange. Now here's another one of those California Sunsets, so I'm gonna, you see the difference in color, and this one's not even looking the healthiest. Hopefully it'll be healthier here, and I'm gonna just pop that in. It already has roots because I rooted it in the propagation station. So also in here are these jelly bean sedums, and you'll notice they're tall and leggy because, again, they're not getting a lot of sunshine. So I could pull this out, roots and all, or I could snip it, and it will grow more little pups if I snip it. So I'm gonna grab some of those too. See, when I pull out the roots, it's gonna sort of disrupt this whole tray, but I think it's okay. And the these things also propagate so easily. So the thing with these propagation trays is not everything works, you know. Sometimes you put leaves in here and they just shrivel up and die, but it's a numbers game. If you have enough on here, eventually you'll get something. So sometimes I get comments from people who say this never works for them, and you know, you have to just keep trying. And then now all these little leaves that came off of those copper tone sedums, just throw them on here and we'll grow some more. So we're looking pretty good. We just have this slightly awkward space here that, due to this big agave, you see there's the fence. It doesn't get a ton of light. It's not really super visible. It's kind of more like a cat walkway. That is my biggest concern here with this space. I don't want it to become a litter box. But what I do have some pretty happy Graptovaria Fred Ives here. So I do have some more of those, and I think that could be the place that I just fill in with all these excessive aeoniums that came out of my yard. We'll fill in this space with the other plants. So now I have my whole little succulent bed filled in for now. They will get bigger. I will probably add more up here too. But for now, the way I want to finish this off is I have these little ends and I want some nice ground cover. I have this sedum that does really nicely in filling in those gaps. So I have some here that's already grown, some here that's looking a little worse for wear, but this stuff roots really easily. You can see it's already got those little aerial roots that are out there looking for moisture and looking to plant itself. So I'm just gonna add these in here. It's not gonna look great when I first add it here, but it'll eventually fill in and look really good. Like a little carpet. I can officially say I'm done with this spot. Filled in all the way up there with some of the larger aeoniums. We have our sedum ground cover, this taller sedum jelly beans. These are Graptopetalatum ghosties. We've got some crassula jade plants, some more copper tone sedum. These are aeonium kiwis. We have some other mix of echeverias, some more echeverias. A really good mix, lots of different colors. They're gonna grow in and fill in. What I really tried to do again is like shorter plants in the front, and then as it goes up a little slope, the taller plants there. And then as it grows and changes, we'll thin it back and cut things out, and it will look really nice and a lot better than a plain old little dirty ledge that it used to look like. And also, one of the best parts about it is I emptied out so many of my kind of overgrown, scraggly pots that weren't looking so great and were just taking up space in my propagation station, which, as you can see, still looks a little chaotic, but we used a lot from the propagation tray, and we emptied out a lot of pots kind of similar to this one that are just taking up space, waiting for their time in the garden. And that is it. Thanks again for joining me on another succulent free plant adventure. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them below. I like to respond to almost every comment that I can. Don't forget, you can also follow me on Instagram and TikTok, and of course, subscribe.